Welcome back to Mideast in Depth, part of Levant TV's Press Reviews. Today we will be looking at the problem in Jerusalem. The editorial team in the Beirut-based Daily Star feature an article on the potential status quo that might be achieved over the Jerusalem issue. 10 years after the death of Yasser Arafat, and the situation for Palestinians is at its direst in years, and any hope of unity between different factions appears a mirage. And on top of all the socio-economic, judicial and human rights problems the Palestinians must always face, they are now forced to do so in the context of a rapidly changing Middle East, where borders and demographics seem to be shifting by the day. Neighboring countries who once had time for the Palestinian cause are too wrapped up in their own concerns. The editors believe Hamas only agreed upon reconciliation when it could hold out its own no longer, when its finances were drying up and its borders closed, and that it was not really motivated by any prospect of lasting peace. And every day Israeli security authorities kill, wound and arrest more Palestinians, while the rest of the world simply issues meaningless condemnations, as it does when the Israeli government announces more settler homes. And the article closes by suggesting that it is up to all Palestinians now to say that these warring factional leaders are not what they want or deserve, and to reclaim a future that is theirs. And in the highest level bid yet to contention over a disputed holy site in Jerusalem, US Secretary of State John Kerry met Thursday in Jordan with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Jordan's King Abdullah II. The article is featured in the LA Times. The writer says at a news conference after the trilateral meeting, Kerry cited arrangement agreement among the parties on the absolute need to uphold the status quo, that is, to maintain long-standing agreements governing access to the site known to Muslims as the Haram al-Sharif and to Jews as the Temple Mount, but neither he nor Jordanian Foreign Minister Nasser Jowdeh disclosed specific measures that would be taken to quell increasing violence. Kerry played down the absence of Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas at the evening meeting in Amman, the Jordanian capital, saying it was not the right moment for a face-to-face encounter with Netanyahu. In recent days, the Israeli and Palestinian leaders have publicly and bitterly blamed each other for compounding the crisis, which has led to deadly attacks in Jerusalem and elsewhere. Friction over the holy site were exacerbated when Israeli authorities late Wednesday announced plans to introduce enhanced security measures for those wanting to pray at the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and meanwhile, the State Department expressed deep concern over preliminary plans approved Wednesday by the Jerusalem municipality for 200 more housing units in a Jewish neighborhood in East Jerusalem. And now we are joined by political commentator William Spring. Welcome to Mideast in Depth.
Yes, hi. Hi,
Mr.
thank you.
Spring, what do you think of John Kerry's step in Jordan and involving the king, who is perhaps the only top figure in the Middle East with some affinity to Israel?
Well, John Kerry hasn't told me why he's going to Jordan, you see. I presume he's just going there for a general sort of imperial progress around his acolyte states, surrogate states. So obviously he's briefing the king and telling him what he ought to do, as he's done in other parts of the Middle East. But exactly what Kerry's plans are, I really don't know. I mean, I'm sure you'd have to ask him to find out what his real purpose is in going there. And I don't suppose he'll tell you, but I'm sure it's a very nice place to go. I rather envy him. Amman is a lovely city.
And while Netanyahu insists that Israel will maintain a status quo, do you think it will be sustainable with the Jerusalem municipality announcing plans for 200 more housing units in a Jewish neighborhood in East Jerusalem?
Well, the Israeli status quo, the status quo in the Holy Land, is just not sustainable at all. Everybody can see that, even the Americans. But Netanyahu and his gang are so obdurate, they won't actually shift until the American public shifts. And particularly the so-called Christian Zionists, who've got a very confused eschatology. And I'm hopeful that over time, the Americans will shift. But at the moment, the Americans are supporting an apartheid state, which is unfortunate. Very few, Israel has very few friends now, either in any part of the world. And I suppose they like to think that America is on their side, but don't think they are really. I think they, Fox News might be, but I don't think of anybody else.
Mr. William Spring, London-based political commentator, thank you very much for being with us today.
Right. Thank you very much. Thanks.
And for more updates, please visit our website on levant.tv. And you could also subscribe to Middle East in Depth on iTunes. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.